Hey guys, it's Mathel here once again, and as one of my last actions for this league as a character, I did want to put Smite to the test as an actual skill by itself rather than the first character that I put out, which was kind of a hybrid Smite summoner type guardian thing as a starter character, which did get me through the game smoothly enough off 0 currency. At this stage, I wanted to try out Smite with a decent, gear setup and let it do its own standalone damage and test it as a skill by itself. Because at the start of the league, I did put out a Smite champion proposed standalone sort of character, and I figured it would do pretty well, but I never actually tried it myself, didn't get too much feedback on it either, so I have to put Smite out there myself and see exactly how it's going. And to my surprise, it is actually a pretty solid skill. You can get a lot of flat lightning damage from Smite itself, almost as much as a Wrath Aura. You then use Wrath Aura, Herald of Thunder, add a Lightning Gem, a few Abyssal Jewels, and you end up having a lot of lightning damage to stack. So this character is a Raider Ranger. It has the Frenzy nodes allocated and also the Onslaught nodes allocated, and that gives me insane amounts of extra attack speed. I'm then using a foil crafted from Delve Fossils to have a lot of attack speed and some penetration, and I'm stacking a decent amount of flat lightning with Smite, Ancestral Call, Multi-Strike to get a lot of attack speed and some decent damage going that way. You can also see I do have Impulsor added for a bit of extra clear, though as you'll see in a later clip in the video, it's really not necessary. I just wanted my build to have an extra little explosion because for me a build without any sort of explosion is just a little bland, and the explosion adds a little bit more fun to my character. So this is probably the fastest attacking character I've actually ever made because I've never really tried pushing attack speed that much, and at most I've usually got about 11 or 12 attacks a second, whereas this one currently has, I think, 14 or 15 attacks a second. With Vile Haste and everything down, I can get up to 16 attacks a second, and it is a pretty comical sort of playstyle and thing to experience when you're going full bore against a boss, or even in a delve zone, and you can just unleash 15 attacks a second non-stop while standing still. It's pretty nuts, and the damage overall is actually fairly respectable as a Smite character. And then once you chuck in a Vile Double Strike on a 4-link, well, you actually get some pretty crazy single target damage happening. And it's had a very strong start on some of these single target encounters, like the Elder that I've tried so far, which has only been a tier 6, but that said, it did die extremely quickly, and also a Zoff Breachstone. This is an example of the build without an Impulsor against a tier 11 map with a bunch of extra damage. It's using a tabula otherwise, so I'm a bit weak on defense in this little bit of a clip. But the point is that it's not really necessary for the clear. You just, poof into a mob pack, Ancestral Call with increased area, still clears a pack very easily, and you will still go pretty damn fast, especially for things like Delve. Just these bigger open maps are going to be a bit slower for something like this, rather than, a projectile-based build that can blow up an entire screen. It's still very fast, and the point is, Impulsor isn't necessary in this build. If I didn't want that pretty explosion, I would honestly just go an Elder Chest that gives some crit, some life, and defenses. It'd be most likely a stronger choice overall. This is a demonstration of the Zoff Breachstone. Like I said, with Vile Double Strike, it's pretty insane. This is the tier 6 Elder, and with Ancestral Call, you can tell that if you line yourself up just right and perfectly, you are still triple hitting the enemy, and you can see sometimes I'm not getting that happening, but sometimes I do, and when it happens, you get a lot of extra damage. So at the start of that little Elder, I only attacked him too close, and I wasn't getting the triple hit. I then shifted movement a little bit and finally found the right place for the triple with the Ancestral Call, and that gives you a DPS increase while using Ancestral Call without having to swap it out. If you really don't like that Ancestral Call playstyle, trying to find the perfect zone, because if a boss, for example, is always going to be running at you and you can't move back, then you can't get the triple damage going. You just grab Ruthless instead of Ancestral Call for these boss fights, and it'll work just fine. And that's a good demonstration of our machine gun attack speed there. So without further ado, I do want to show you how I've built the character so far. So the character is currently level 89 Smite Ceto, and it's a Raider Ranger based around, like I said, the Frenzy Charge nodes here and the Onslaught nodes here. Now there's no real right answer. You can grab the phasing ones, which are very strong in their own right. They give you some additional defense through some dodge, as well as a bit of extra movement speed. Ellie Elements immunity, which is really nice for especially a lot of the delving out there, and then a bit of extra damage. So it does save you a couple of flask slots that, you know, freeze immunity, for example. But I wanted to go as fast as possible, as much damage as possible, and that's why you go the Onslaught route for those reasons. But the difference around a Raider tree and most others is that you do take every Frenzy node on the tree. So there are a Frenzy node there, and there. Otherwise, the tree is pretty much as you'd expect for most other melee characters. You grab some crit, some sword crit, some Ellie pen, one round of acro there, and then you try and get a few jewel sockets, because jewel sockets are pretty good in this type of build. You do need some int as well, and that's why we get these ints down here, because you're trying to get enough int for Wrath and Herald of Thunder at their highest levels. So that's what a lot of our damage is based off of, just flat lightning stacking coming from Wrath, Herald of Thunder, the added lightning gem over here, and then as well as that, Smite itself has a bit of a Wrath aura, 13 to 239, and then you get just a little bit coming in from some flat stacking from your Abyssal Jewels. So the more you can spend on a build like this, the better it's going to be. Otherwise, you can very simply choose to not build around a delve item like this and go just a physical sword that does some conversion. As you can see here, you convert 50% of your fizz to lightning. You can instead just get a really big fizz item. You can even run an Abyssus and then convert the rest of your damage to elemental as well, most likely through this node, or some Crim Sorrow gloves if you choose, or a fizz to lightning, and chances are you could get bigger damage that way, but just stacking some Abyssal Jewels is actually going to be the easiest way to get the biggest amount of damage. So this foil here is just a lot of attack speed, a little bit of wed, and then the primary thing on here is 20% Ellie pen. Now this comes about from the prismatic jewel for fossil crafting. I managed to craft this using a 4-socket resonator. Never used one of those before, and I decided to give it a shot. So I used metallic, prismatic, sanctified, and shuddering for the attack speed, and managed to get lucky with the big attack speed roll and then the Ellie pen roll, and that's basically what we're looking for. The onslaught doesn't do anything, the lightning completely whiffed, managed to craft crit onto it, and got some wed as well. So overall this won't be too much better than just say a basic triple Ellie foil with attack speed and crit, which are pretty common these days, but it does give you a good opportunity to go purely flat lightning and not have to balance something like a Wise Oak, which of course I do anyway because it's very worth doing. But if you don't want to do that, you can just run an Inquisitor, you can run a Pathfinder for the penetration, a Scion, all that kind of shit, and do multiple types of damage, whereas I am going pure lightning and still trying to triple balance my Wise Oak for defensive purposes, but the main purpose of the weapon is for the lightning pen and the attack speed. So when you try and stack this much flat, the more attack speed you get, the better you're going to go off, which means you want a foil with something like 25 or more attack speed. Now beside that, we do have an offhand here. Since Smite only attacks with the main hand, it doesn't matter what you put in the offhand. In this case, I've gone for a dagger that has some Elias Chaos and some damage penetration. So you're still only attacking with the main hand and getting a bit of extra chaos and some Ellie pen that way, and roughly that's what it's going to look like. We're then running, like I said, Impulsor. I don't think it's mandatory at all. I just wanted to get the explosions and see if I could get 4 reds, 2 blues onto it. With 1 3-red craft from Varici managed to happen, so then I decided to use the Impulsor. If that wasn't going to happen, I definitely would have just grabbed an Elder Chest and run with that. Other than that, nothing too special. Delve crafted belt, the usual Tomb Fists, got some accuracy filled out on one ring with elemental damage life and resist filled out on another, elemental damage multi and bit of life and cold resist, and then a 40 smite damage helm that also has Delve crafted -2 lightning res, and of course a very big pair of resist and life boots. So you will struggle to get the same amount of life totals and damage totals if you try and build this exact character unless you're going to invest a lot. So the starter champion build I've put out is probably going to be a lot more flexible for your gearing because you can just get a lot more on the passive tree for life while maintaining some big damage numbers thanks to champion being champion. But this is the one we're trying to min-max for most attack speed while damage and movement speed as well. And hopefully this one takes on endgame pretty damn smoothly in the next day or two. And I think it will, because the damage is rather ridiculous at this point, thanks to the Smite Ancestral Call setup, and then of course our Val Double Strike setup, which currently is Val Double Strike, Ellie Focus, Added Lightning, and Ellie Damage with attacks. The Smite setup is Smite, Ellie Damage with attacks, Multi-Strike, Ancestral Call, and Added Lightning. I am then almost all of the time running Increased Area, but I will be subbing out Increased Area for Conk Effect when I really want to go big single target, but currently just using crit damage otherwise. And like I said, if you really don't like the Ancestral Call playstyle on single target, just chuck in a Ruthless, and that's what you're going to be doing instead. There won't be any having to shift around getting the perfect sort of distance for Ancestral Calling, because the idea is to get just far enough away that Ancestral Call goes off and you're attacking 2 extra times there. So other than that, there's actually nothing else to mention on this character, because you can also go Leap Slam or Whirling Blades, doesn't really matter. I played with Whirling Blades most of the video that you would have seen, and then I'm running Leap Slam at the moment because it feels just a little better. And of course, Curse on Hit, Herald of Thunder over here. But yeah, the only other thing to show you is the path of building. The current damage here is 950k on the Conk Effect, Multi-Strike, Ancestral Call, Smite. So that's not showing the pure damage, that's showing the Ancestral Call damage. You then factor in if you're going to hit an extra couple of times. If not, you can just simply tick Ruthless instead. You're looking at about 1.5 million damage, 14 attacks per second. And then you can also get your Val Double Strike in there, and that's going to be, I don't know, let's say a fuck ton of extra damage. So that's the current build. Like I said, there is a champion version out there as my starter that I put out in the starter build video. Otherwise, you can easily play plenty of other things like Pathfinder. You can do probably Assassin, Trickster, Elementalist, Inquisitor, Berserker. Chances are you can do a Jug, Champion, Slayer. All of that sort of shit will work for Smite, and it seems like it's going to be a decent enough starter, especially as a champion, because a lot of these things just scale off of pure gem level. So your Smite, your Wrath, your Herald of Thunder, your Added Lightning, that's all gem level based stuff, and just the more you level, the stronger it's going to feel. You then supplement it with some gear here or there, and it should get even better. So currently, guys, that's the guide for this character. I will be hopefully taking on Uber Elder today and showing more of that in the next video. But for now, guys, thank you very much for watching, and see you next time.